Alright, and here's my first tutorial on coloring. What I'm doing now is I copied the main layer, I put it on multiply so you can see underneath it without having to delete the white. I'm creating the flats now. The flats are pretty important in the fact that that's going to get your main base to start with. I like to get really close to the edges to start, get everything cleaned up to begin with, because after I get the flats done, I actually lock the background, which if you look over in your layers, there's the first box where it says lock will actually lock the background. What that does is the colors that are there on your piece you can change and add and subtract from, but you won't be able to color past the color that you already have there. And that helps so you can go pretty quick going over and painting and not have to worry about going over the lines. I created a different layer for the pants, creating the flats for that as well, getting it nice and cleaned up on the edges. And I can see that there is a few touch-up areas that I had to fix up. This is obviously very sped up. I don't paint this fast. I'm quick, but I don't paint this fast. Okay, as you can see, all the layers are locked, but they're not locked as in you can't affect them. I changed my brush to make it all pen sensitive, and that way when I actually paint, I changed the brush tip as well. It's your own preference when you start to paint on how you want it to look, but with the pen pressure I can get more of a paint look. Right here on this close-up, I'm just trying to get that first tone. I'm creating my light source from the left, so I wanted to start with the main darks area of his face to give myself the idea of where the light source is going to be. Creating darks and lights into the face. Me myself, and especially in a piece like this, I like to create a little extra detail in the face and the body, just to make the face stand out more. In every piece you do, you want one main focal point. If it's a different artist's piece, usually when they're drawing it, you can tell just from the drawing itself. Then when you actually color it in, you can enhance it in any way that you can. This piece is my own. I drew this for a friend whose name I will post on my DeviantArt, which is at d-stone.deviantart.com, and it will be on this picture when I post it there. Alright, and again what I'm doing again is just dark and light. I like to use black and white tones to begin with. This isn't going to be just a black and white piece. I like to use black and white tones. It's easier to get a good transfer from dark to light without having to match a bunch of colors. The thing that I use after I get my tones set is variations, from image adjustments, and then all the way at the bottom is variations, and then you can mess with all those different things in there to get the color that you want from your tones. And as you can see on the arms and the body that I was doing, I'm painting pretty quickly. I mean, obviously it's fast, but I am painting pretty quick. And then I'll go in and touch up more, but I just wanted to get that first set complete on what all the darks and lights were going to be at. After you lay down most of the paints, then you use smudge to get it nice and clean. That's how it's getting clean, like that. You also can do that with the paintbrush itself. It just takes a lot of time, and if you want to spend a long time on a piece, then yeah, go for it if you want that completed paint look. Even though I find that even with the smudge tool, gets it cleaned up and I can work a bit faster, when I'm completed, it still looks like a pretty painted look. As you can see, I'm creating pretty thin white lines on the outer edges. What that does is it makes the piece, whether it be arm, leg, hand, anything that you're actually coloring in, it could be a ball, There's a reflective light that comes up afterwards. When you cast a light on something, when it hits the surface or whatever's behind it, it reflects back, and that's why some pieces have that thin white line on the darkest area of the picture. Well, that roundness at the same time will show, as obviously most pieces on the body are pretty rounded off, like the forearms and etc. So adding those little thin lines will help pop that piece out. And of course, this is still pretty quick areas to get the dark and light. Still is what I'm doing here, getting it smudged. It's a bit more complicated with hair, so I didn't want to get too smooth. I wanted some kind of a slightly rough look inside to still give the effect that it may be hair. Now here's the variations I was talking about. I go through the shadows, midtones, and highlights, and I even turn the saturation down if it's just too much of color to start with. I'm burning and dodging now. Burning darkens, dodging lightens. What the burn and dodge does is, depending on what you have it on, whether it be midtones, shadows, or highlights, it will darken or lighten in different ways. I'm adding extra details of hair on the face because from the actual reference of the drawing that I used, I remembered that it almost looked like the otter had a mustache type thing and a goatee because he had really gray hairs on his face, plus the that weren't his whiskers, which I just drew quick ones on this for this piece. Now when you change the colors and variations, it changes all the black and white tones to whatever colors you put in. So there were some areas that I wanted to be pure white, so that's what I'm doing now. I'm just painting white again on the areas that I want to really stand out as the areas that are really lit. Of course, on the outer edges I want to make sure that's really white because it'll really pop that area out and make it look nice and round. And of course you also don't want to put it on just the whole entire piece on one whole side, almost all the way around. You just want to put on the areas that could possibly having a light reflected from it. And his body's about done now. Dark and light painting on the pants. I didn't go massively into details with this. As you can see, I'm not really zoomed in. I wanted a really rough look. I added some color now. Midtones, highlights, shadows. Then I go back and forth, mess it around a bit. Get it smudged. I chose a different brush to give different effects to it, and I changed the colors. I added some blues and I believe like a purple color in there, lightening it up, burn and dodge. It's not a lot of work, but I think the pants turned out pretty well. Now what I'm doing is I'm creating the character's name behind him, and again I'll have that link to my friend's page so you can see the work he's done. If you have any questions about the character, you can ask him for sure. I'm sure he'd be glad to talk about his character. Okay, there I'm just adding a drop to the actual picture to make it look like it's a distance away from the background. The outer glow is green. I added a bevel and emboss and turned the light tone into green, which makes it look like that green light is affecting the name as well. Alright, that's a quick image from offline of a brick wall. I turned it into black and white, then I turned it into multiply, and then I just darkened the background, and I did a few touch-ups here and there. Now I sign myself. Of course, when I sign, I like it to be an outer glow of blue. The first time I didn't like how I signed, so I changed it a bit. And there you go. Hope you liked it.